because this might be the inner chronicle of what we are. And we have to articulate ourselves, otherwise we would be cows in a field.
I have to say these words. A beginning is a very delicate time. I just wanted to start with that. I was going to do more, but I think that's good enough. We are Cows in the Field. This is a movie podcast where we explore philosophical themes in popular film. My name is Justin.
I'm Laura.
Today, we are going to hop aboard Shai Hulud and herald the coming of the Kwisatz Haderach. We're talking about Dune. We're talking about Dune 2021. We're talking about Dune 1984. Mm-hmm. We're talking about all things Dune right now, not the miniseries. For me, that's out. I don't even want to. It's been canceled for me, so okay. I can't even deal with that thing.
Stick to the intro.
Stick to the intro. Now, when we were deciding, okay, we want to do a Dune episode, I figured we needed to have someone on who I think probably will exceed, but at least can match my level of excitement about the 84 movie at least. So we're delighted to be joined today by the editor-in-chief of Humongous on Medium. He's also a co-host of the Dune Conversations with friend Jordan Hoffman. That's a podcast where they talk about Dune, obviously. And he's written for Comedy Central, Esquire, Marvel, GQ, SiriusXM, and Vanity Fair. It's John DeVore.
Thank you. I'm so excited to talk about Dune, about Dunes.
Dunes.
Both the 1984 and the more recent one, which I saw last week.
So, John, we want to start today with your love of Dune, which has, if anyone knows you, they know that you love Dune, probably more than anyone. So I want to know, how did you come to the movie? So we're talking about the 84 movie. So how did you first see it? Did you read the book before?
No.
How did this happen?
No. I feel justified in my love of the 84 Dune, because I have sincerely loved it. I am an enormous fan of David Lynch, obviously. But Dune is a movie. I have loved it. And now that people are jumping on the bandwagon, I'm smug. I'm just like, ugh. Mm-hmm. I told a friend of mine, one of the best ways to watch the original Dune is to imagine you're with Dino De Laurentiis, the producer, sitting in a screening room about to watch the first cut, and he's rubbing his hands together thinking this is going to be my Star Wars. Mm-hmm. And then 2.5 hours of bizarre S&M worm, cocaine, space Muslim, all this. I saw it because I thought I was a kid. I had to have been 9 or 10 or so. And, 1984 was an era where studios were throwing money at big budget genre films, and everyone wanted a Star Wars. And so I was one of a small group of kids that was like, well, this is going to be like Star Wars, right? Yeah. And I was exposed to the glory of this, intergalactic politics and giant sandworms. And before, we were talking, I showed you all my sandworm toy, right? This is something I begged my mom. So they produced a bunch of toys like Star Wars men, but these toys looked like small little goth nightmare things. And I begged my mom for this sandworm, and it looks like, and tell me if it doesn't, it looks like a dildo.
Yeah, it does.
I ran around my neighborhood waving this thing in the air like a magic wand, and it looked like I had a curved ribbed dildo. Yeah. They sold this to children. So I read the books later, but I fell into, and I loved Dune. No one liked it. It felt like it was mine. Mm. And David Lynch is a deeply visceral director. That creates these dreamscapes, and I think he's very well suited for sci-fi, frankly. Mm-hmm. But I loved it because it was just so strange, and I was a strange kid.
Okay, so there are two things. First of all, can you hold up the thing again? So
the sandworm,
the sandworm,
yeah.
So let's describe this for our audience here. So
sure,
what we're looking.
I think I described it pretty well.
Well, yes, but I want to add a couple words here. So it is a curved, ribbed. I mean, it is girthy too, right? Like you like
it, look. Without being unduly controversial, it is girthy. Correct.
Yes. And then there's an opening on one side with the sort of triple opening thing with how the worm mouth opens, and then there's all these teeth.
Right.
It looks a little bit like for the audience, if you've seen obviously the Lynch worm, it looks like that, but it also kind of looks like the Sarlacc from Return of the Jedi.
Sure.
But that kind of makes it so one end it kind of looks like a dildo, obviously, but then the other end it makes it look like a fleshlight.
Oh wow!
Right, because it has the opening and So anyway,
right. So we have it is a full
service.
It is the spectrum. It is the gender spectrum.
That's right. Everyone can have fun.
It is a holy artifact. And it was a toy that was in a box that was in Toys R Us. And I was like, Mommy, I want this worm. And I love my mom because my mom knew I wasn't right. And she was like, you know what? I'm going to buy the kid the worm. She did not buy me, however, Baron Harkonnen.
I wanted to ask if they made Harkonnen toys. I want to know all about this. Can you rip some flesh off of a cow and give it to Beast?
There was no heart plug toy.
Oh,
but they had a Harkonnen, a Sardaukar warrior. They had a Paul Atreides. I think they had a Gurney Halleck,
and
balding
they had with the mullet and everything.
He made being bald
and
hot.
The weird liar. So yeah, I found it as a kid, right? And I love the movie. I love it for sentimental reasons, and I love it because I think it's one thing I talked with Jordan Hoffman about. The original Dune, I think, is an inspiring, creative story. Because David Lynch got what every director's supposed to want, right? Which is a big Hollywood success. It was an enormous failure. It wrecked him. It forced him to retreat and to kind of reinvent himself creatively. And I just find that to be kind of an inspiring story because in the failure of Dune, Lynch retreats and then creates Blue Velvet. And from there, this entire cinematic vocabulary that, has created just, I watch Mulholland Drive every 6 months. I love that movie,
too.
I really, in Dune, I also find this story of he gets it, right? He gets the bone. He gets the Hollywood story, and he makes a big swing. It's brilliant. It's weird. He fails, and he finds his voice.
So I want to come back to your experience with Dune, but you mentioned something that I think is really important that I think people, especially scholars of Lynch, are only, I think, recently coming around to understanding, which is that Dune occupies a pivotal place in his career. So it sits between Elephant Man and Blue Velvet, but it bridges them in a really interesting way. So I just saw this in this book. Read the name of it. It's called Constellations, Studies in Science Fiction, Film, and TV, Dune, Christian McCrea. And in this book, he noticed, and I did not pick this up. I did not notice this. He notices that the last shot of the Elephant Man mirrors exactly the first shot of Dune. So the last shot of the Elephant Man is the face of the Elephant Man's mother, fading out.
Right.
And the first shot of Dune is the face of Virginia Madsen fading in on a starlit night. Right.
Right.
Of course, the Elephant Man is about the grotesque and about the humanity in the grotesque. And it has all the things that Lynch, is going to go on to explore, coming to terms with these sort of dark and horrifying. And he's doing that in Dune on like a much bigger scale. In a way, Dune is just the Elephant Man with a whatever $30 million budget or whatever he got. But it's also a coming of age story, right? Dune is a coming of age story of Paul Atreides. And that's another theme that Lynch loves and explores with Blue Velvet. He even uses Kyle MacLachlan, the coming of age with Kyle MacLachlan again. So I think Dune really does transition between these two movies almost seamlessly, and one informs the other.
Whatever his feelings are about his own movie is fine. Mm-hmm. I don't find it to be an artistic failure in the context of blockbuster filmmaking and in the context of Lynch's the story of himself as a creative person,
right?
And the themes that he explores. Absolutely, because we can link all of his movies back to Eraserhead. And I love Elephant Man. I love Elephant Man because I love that Mel Brooks, one of the guy who owns the rights, that Mel Brooks sat down, saw Eraserhead, and went, oh, this guy should direct this play, right? It was a play. Right. So going back to Dune, it is. He is in that movie. What's most interesting is that is him at the apex of the Hollywood system.
Yeah,
they are saying, it's his story. He has talked about how he was given. I saw an interview where he talks about how he was offered Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right, famously. But then the next big thing to come along was Dune. So he was given this chance to be a Spielberg, Joe Dante, that generation. And he did stuff with that genre. I joke that if Dune had been a success, we'd have more blockbusters with whispered interior monologues.
Yeah.
But it's crazy that his solution to not having exposition, his solution to being faithful to the book was this insane tactic where he hushed interior monologues. That's crazy. Where have you ever seen that again in an American movie? Nowhere.
It's wonderful. It's so wonderful.
I love it.
Could he be the one? Maybe. But will he be ours to control?
There's a part of me that wants to do a cut of the new Dune where I whisper,
I was doing it in my head. In the 2020 and the 2021 one, Jessica's upset, or she's, the Bene Gesserit comes in. I hear it in my head, I could lose my son tonight. I'm like, this movie is lacking. I don't know what she's thinking because I don't hear it whispered. I
want to do a cut where I just go, never a drop of rain on Arrakis. He who controls the spice controls the universe. I think movies, imagine if the Marvel movie, just imagine imagine if that had become cool, It's this is Tony Stark, that's Iron Man. Hello, it'd be.
Well, that's the thing is, so if Lynch, I think to put 84 Dune in perspective for people today, it's as if Lynch had suppose he made Elephant Man in 2016 or something, he would have been offered whatever Marvel movie was coming up next.
Right.
And it would have been fucking crazy because that's the thing is it would have been this just insane. He's going to break every rule. They're going to say, oh no, we need a washed out color palette. We need to have these certain needle drops. He's just going to break all of that and they're going to hate it. And his career will be, it'll be sort of quote unquote ruined and he'll go into the wilderness, but it would be wonderful. It would be this strange, weird curio. And that's what Dune was in 84. It was just before we had, that machine of, it was the beginnings of that machine.
The Star Wars merchandising machine was kind of a happy accident that sort of created the mold. They made fucking toys before they actually saw that he was squeezing Max von Sydow into a Leatherman still suit. They made the fucking toys, and somebody thought, well, this is like an Ewok. the giant phallus, the giant man-eating phallus is And you bring up the Sarlacc pit, I in the Decider story, I call Dune Goth Star Wars. And, I love Dune. I love the new foundation. And it's just more and more apparent how Lucas ripped off all of those mid-century novels, how much Dune there is in Star Wars.
Yeah.
I think also hurt Dune at the time, but the Sarlacc pit is a sandworm.
Yep.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, actually, I was reading in this Constellations. I mean, Herbert was actually at the time upset with Lucas and with Star Wars because of all of the things that he saw as them taking from him. And, he said, I would have given you this stuff, but you got to come at least and ask me. So he was actually aware of it and not happy, I guess.
Interesting. Okay. I look, and then I read the books. I love them. I just love it.
So the other thing you said, John, that I love is because the 84 Dune was so maligned for so long, for those of us that saw it and sort of fell in love with it, I think for me, it was not love at first sight, but it was love at maybe third sight. I watched it a few times as a kid, and then I started to be like, this is very cool. Like, I just kept coming back to it.
How did you see it? Because your father recently rewatched it and hated it. So it's not like it was something you had on VHS
I didn't
at home.
My parents did not show me Dune in the way that they showed me Star Wars.
So how did you get at it?
My dad liked the book, so I read Dune, the book, the novel, and then I would have been 10 or 11 or 12, something like that. And then I was told, somehow I found out that there's a movie, and I probably rented it.
Yeah.
I probably just rented it on videotape or maybe bought it or something. So I probably watched it for the first time either on VHS or it was on TV. And I remember not liking that they had cut some of the book and thinking, okay, yeah, but not fully appreciating what I think it was doing. But then it was a movie that I would just come back to again and again as a kid. But it was also like you, John, for me, I felt like, because it was like a guilty pleasure in the sense that I didn't feel comfortable sharing my love of Dune with other people. I wasn't running around with the sandworm phallus. You were
just playing with it in your room at night.
It felt like
you were Dune curious.
Yes, it felt inappropriate. It really did. It felt outre in a way. Even at the time, I recognized that I was not going to be able to bond with my friends over this. And so I kept it down. I sort of kept it.
This is so funny to me.
But then in college, some friends sort of watched it ironically, and I would, I enjoyed that with them. But I always felt, I mean, it was like pseudo ironic, that kind of level of irony where they're sort of being ironic, but if asked, they would deny it all the way. So it was this weird kind of irony, but I was still watching it thinking, I kind of like this. This is good. Then in grad school, that's when I just was, grad school is a time when you can let your freak flag fly. And that was when the still suit was on. I would show it I would show it to everyone, and I organized annual screenings.
That's how I first saw it. Because we started dating in 2009, and it felt like you were like a few months in, and you're like, if we're going to be dating, you guys sit down and watch Dune. I was like,
I've got something to tell you.
Yeah.
Before we continue.
Exactly.
And you were like, oh God, he's married. And you're like, no.
It was a little bit of a litmus test. Yeah, it was a little bit of a, as we've talked about, I think, I don't know if I cut that part, but we call it whatever you called it, the striptease of crazy.
Striptease of crazy, yeah.
Yeah, it was a little bit of that. I had to reveal a little bit of the crazy underneath.
I thought I was like living like two different lives at the time because it was, do you remember the day you showed it to me, Justin?
No, I don't remember.
Okay, I remember this distinctly. You showed it to me the day of the Harvard-Yale game, my senior year.
Okay.
So like I'm doing the most like basic bitch stuff, right? Like I'm like doing a kegger with my friends, and like I'm like, yeah, football, which I don't watch, and like, like trying to pretend like I'm a college kid. And then I come home, I'm like a little bit, I'm like coming down, I'm like a little bit hungover at 4 p.m, which always sucks. And you were like, sit down, it's Dune night.
Wait, was it a big thing?
Yes,
like, was it one
you
of
had
the
arranged like a grad school.
He was like, he looked you deep in the eye and he went, have you ever seen Sting in a codpiece?
Wings.
Winged codpiece. Yeah.
It's happening. Here we go.
I just remember like watching my weird grad school boyfriend like freak out about Dune in front of me and I was just like, man, I've got like a split personality or something.
No, if I had been a Yenta in your life, I would have been like, that's marriage material.
Well, clearly.
It was.
I was like, I gotta make a baby with that guy.
I mean, yeah, the fact you didn't run away was I think the only sign I needed that this was a perfect match.
And look, I have no irony when it comes to Lynch's Dune, but I have no irony when it comes to Lynch.
Yeah.
You know, look, I have plenty of bad movies that I love and that are actually bad or not bad or ironic or whatever, but Dune is not one of them. I think it is. And I find myself comparing this new one to the 84. And I don't think you can. I think it's impossible not to.
Yeah.
To compare the two because Lynch is a master and Dune was his one shining Hollywood movie. It was his one big, I wish that he had made more movies in that genre because Lynch his monsters are unforgettable. And, and even, and I just wish he had made more overt fantasies because in a way, Twin Peaks is very much has a fantastical element to it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally. All right. Well, with that in mind, let's compare them. I mean, I think that in some respects it's inevitable, and it's also incredibly difficult. I've been, since we've seen it, I've been thinking, it's been rattling around in my mind how to possibly do this comparison. They feel, honestly, even though they're the same source material, completely different genres. I find it very difficult. It's like trying to compare a rom-com and a horror, and you're just like, I don't know how I'm supposed to do this, but let's try. So here's my way into this. So famously, as we all know, the 84 Dune, widely regarded as both a commercial and artistic failure. It may have, in the time, ruined Lynch's life. He will never, he himself has said he won't watch the new movie because the old one looms too large in his mind as a horrible memory. Yet, of course, as the two of us are attesting to, the old movie has a real, group of defenders. It has some people who seriously love it, will stand for it and defend it. Dune 2021, by contrast, looks like it might be on track to have perhaps the exact opposite trajectory. So it's doing very well at the box office. Lots of people herald it as a major artistic success. There are nonetheless some rumblings of negativity. So the critics are not fully, behind it. There's a number of people, a number of critics have echoed the same thing, that it's big yet empty. That seems to be one of the main things. Or beautiful but boring. And that, I think, those are not good adjectives to describe something in terms of it having staying power. Because those adjectives would not describe the Lynch film. And if anything, the Lynch film could be described as small in a way, but not boring in any regard. Because every scene, there's something unbelievably strange happening.
It really is. In every scene, there is just something that's like, what the fuck? Yes, right. Did you like it?
Did we like it?
Both like it.
All right, let's all do it. Let's go round robin real quick. I'm giving Villeneuve Dune a thumbs up, Laura.
A 1 out of 2 or what?
No, I mean, I liked it.
I liked it.
Yeah,
I liked it.
I liked it. John?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I liked it. How do you pronounce his name?
I think it's Villeneuve.
Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah, he, in some of the notes that you sent for the pre-interview, I lean towards his non-sci-fi movies more. But I find him to be a little bit like Christopher Nolan, who I'm a big fan of too. who are these cerebral bro directors who are able who have emotional ambitions that they just can't quite get there. I found the emotional. I just, in my review, I used the word sterile, which might have been a little rough. But the fall of the House Atreides didn't hit me. Jason Momoa, who was charming as all hell, swaggering, was given this wonderful spoiler alert, right? Self-sacrifice scene that where he just felt kind of, he flops over. It felt kind of weird, it's so good looking and it flows like the spice, but it just again, like Nolan, and I love Christopher Nolan, I truly do, but I just don't ever feel that he nails the and Lynch. People misunderstand him. He is visceral. He is a deeply hot, sweaty, dirty soaked bed sheet sort of director. He is a visceral director. And don't get me wrong, being cerebral, Kubrick, amazing. But yeah, I found this Dune to, it's a betrayal of Leto by Huey. Wasn't this thundering it in the book and in Lynch's movie, it's a shocker. And I just didn't get, so there were some notes in the new Dune in this 2021 one that I don't know, maybe it'll change when I watch it 2, 3, 15, 16 more times.
I mean, I agree with all of that. I think the sterile is actually a good word. I mean, I think that could be used to describe a lot of Villeneuve's filmography. It's, he's a very precise director. He moves the camera with precision. He frames things perfectly. He's like Fincher in this regard. Everything is very neat. Lynch just doesn't care about that stuff. He's a messy director. He likes to deal with all the messy, gross minutia of having a body. To give one example, so I mean, it might be better to actually go scene to scene, but I can't think of a good one right now off the top of my head. But one of my favorite scenes in the Lynch film, which is not in the Villeneuve film, is the first scene when the Spacing Guild worm guy shows up with the Emperor. But there's so many little details in that indicating the physicality of what's happening. So first of all, everyone is sweating, which they're always sweating in the film. Everyone is inexplicably sweating.
Well, no, it's not inexplicable. They're in Mexico.
Well, yeah. Thank you for that. Yes. They're on House Carino or whatever in Mexico.
Yeah. It's hot.
It is hot, yeah. And they're wearing like these metal or these big leather suits and everything. But the worm guy, the Spacing Guild guy, he comes in this huge metallic tube, and during his time there's in the background dudes just vacuuming up the
slime,
the slime that's being left, and then
I interpret that as the spice.
It's just off spice.
Yeah, that they're vacuuming. That's because I love the vacuum guys.
Yeah,
and I love that you've watched Dune enough that you're like, oh, let's take a look. Let's spend some time taking a look at the Space Navigator's entourage.
Yeah, that's what that's what I'm into with the Lynch one. And well, here's two other things about that actually. So one is that Laura noticed this time because I was like, I love those guys doing the vacuuming, and then he leaves.
I love those guys.
And then Laura was like, yeah, but they're not doing a very good job. There's a huge pool of shit still left.
Oh, is there?
It's just a huge
half-hearted.
Yeah, it's like half-hearted. It's not even doing a great job of vacuuming it I
like how the Emperor is always like, oh man. Like every time they have a meeting, they gotta get the cleanup crew.
Yeah.
And for the 45 minutes afterwards, they gotta clean the throne room because the Space Guild Navigator has been gooing it up.
We have just folded space from Ix.
Yes? How was your journey?
Many machines on Ix. New machines.
Oh? Yes.
Better than those ornery chests. You are transparent. I see many things.
Can we please talk about, though, how in the 2021 Dune, they kind of glance over the space travel, and how Dune gives us an aquarium-free space maggot, naked, flying high as a kite on spice into the fucking, I don't know, space cube to do some goddamn, what is it? Wrinkle in Time shit? Like, I don't know what.
He's blasting his shit out of his mouth. I don't know.
That's right. He's blasting. He's vomiting.
Yeah.
Like I have a back when I. When you do that, when you've done so much coke, you're heaving up light. I mean, that's insane. That Lynch was like, we need to visualize it. We need what's happening, David. I don't know. But the maggot has to vomit light.
That's what I love. Okay, sorry, we are going to talk about the Villeneuve Dune, but just I love imagining. I love imagining that. I love imagining that. So they're like, okay, David, this is going to cost $200,000 to do this, and he's like, no, it has to be this way. And they're like, okay, well, what narrative purpose is this going to serve? What's going on here? Can you explain it? And David Lynch just probably looks at them and says, no. And then here it goes. Just let's do it.
Well, you see, but here's Dino De Laurentiis. He's like, okay, so when the Millennium Falcon goes to hyperspace, the stars stretch, and there's a boom and a crash. What happens in Dune? And Lynch is like, oh, well, when the spaceships are going to go into light space or whatever, a little space maggot flies up into a space cube, vomits light, and then space is folded.
That's right, and then it just appears.
Right, and then again, Dino De Laurentiis. What did I do? This is a toy.
But okay, but so 2021 Dune. Yeah. What is the equivalent? Well, we have a few scenes where shit gets weird. So we have, of course, the Harkonnen stuff, which I guess I'm going to call them Harkonnens, even though they're called Harkonnens in the new movie.
No, Harkonnens.
Yeah. They're Harkonnens today. The Harkonnen stuff is weird, and there are some glimpses of some very strange stuff. But it's all, again, as you put it, sterile. It's antiseptic. It looks nothing. There's no dirt or grime. So maybe that's a better scene.
I didn't like the Harkonnens. There was some detailing. The only scene I liked with the Harkonnens is when he emerges from the healing goop and he briefly complains about how expensive it was to invade Arrakis and destroy. And so that I kind of liked. I kind of liked that he's like bitching about like how, and he says to Raban, go out and get the money, but he's like, he's in his bath and he's like, this is really expensive. I chuckle. I like that. And I wish there had been more of the kind of feudal sort of capitalist sort of stuff that's going on. I like that. There were some moments that I wanted more of, like Leto. There's a moment, I think, where Oscar Isaac, he wants to help the Fremen, but not to the point that he's going to leave the planet. Like he is a colonialist. He's the best. He's a nice colonialist, which right, that doesn't exist. But I thought that was a really interesting moment. He can go somewhere, but ultimately he can't go to the true moral place.
Right.
That's a really good point. No, that's
like you can continue to hide in the shadows. Like, but this planet's
we won't bother you. But we need our damn spice.
Right. And so I like those are interesting detailing moments that I would have wanted more of.
I mean, what I was thinking though is I agree with you about that. I think but I think actually that picks up on, I think, one of the reasons why the Villeneuve one feels sterile, as you put it. There are no details. Like there are no, except for these small little things where the Emperor complains about the money. There's no sequence like this Lynch thing with the guy vacuuming where you realize, yeah, of course, someone would have to be vacuuming up that shit. Also, someone would have to be signing the check for the soda car and for all this nonsense that we're doing. Those details are generally absent. It's more zoomed out. That's why I thought of it as expansive, in that it's just this sort of more of a God's eye view. And there's less of like, now we're going to have a shot of Jack Nance just in the corner.
drinking his bug juice.
Yeah. Oh, he doesn't drink the bug juice.
We're bad.
Yeah.
Oh, we're bad.
Jack Vance is in the corner with like a monkey grinder or something.
Yeah.
He's got something.
It's just, what is he doing? Like that's the kind of thing. And then, okay, so here's the real thing. The real comparison is first scene of the Harkonnens in 84 Dune and first scene of the Harkonnens in 2021. First scene of the Harkonnens in Lynch's Dune, there are all these small little details. Like there's some guy who comes in and he's putting flowers in vases for no reason. Like there's no reason for him to be doing that. That's just there. Everything is grimy and weird. There are like these lights that are situated that turn out not to be lights because they're actually drip goo on him. And that sort of stuff, you think like, okay, this really is, there's detail here in ways, and it's surprising detail. In the Villeneuve one, there were some things like that, but they, like there's a spider person, and I thought that was kind of cool. I was into the spider person. I wanted to know, is that a sex person? Like, is that something there because they had, they're keeping some mutated person for sex play reasons, or is going on?
Not a Lynch movie.
No, but I mean, it was very.
I gotta tell you, I respect that in this safe space, when you saw the spider, was that a sex spider? Or is that a? What do you think, honey? What do you think? Did you lean over? You're like, what kind of spider do you think that is? Do you think that's a security spider? No, that's definitely a sex spider.
What's he eating out of a dog bowl? I don't know.
Sure,
There's some weird. There's something weird happening.
Hey! 10,000 years in the future, who knows, right?
Who knows?
Why not?
Who knows?
Okay, hey everyone, this is Justin's inner monologue. I just want to say that after this conversation, I realized that Denis Villeneuve has used spiders and sex before in his movies. So if you remember the movie Enemy, he has this sort of spider thing that shows up at some weird sex party and kind of haunts that movie periodically. So just wanted to throw that in there. I don't know if I was completely off base with my assumption that there was a sex spider, but I think I was picking up on that. All right, the sleeper must awaken.
It's not anything to do with me and what I read into it.
No, look, I would not shame you. It's the same. Look, I'm playing with a dildo.
I had no idea when we started recording there this was going to go in this area, but yes, this is what has happened.
Oh, you didn't, did you?
There's nothing in my notes on this.
Oh, okay.
It is a very slickly designed movie.
Yes.
And one thing that it lacked the tactility, and I blame practical effects of Lynch's Dune, but also Lynch's Dune's designs were remarkable.
Yeah.
The still suits in Lynch, the guy that designed the still suits in Lynch's Dune, Bob Ringwood, would go on to design Tim Burton's Batman. And so, the still suits in Lynch's Dune look a little Geiger-esque, but they also have Ringwood's sort of organic, rubbery, the Bene Gesserits in Lynch's Dune are sexy and fearsome. They look scary. And the lead Bene Gesserit in the 2021, I wrote that she looked like she won an Italian widow pageant. Like she looked like it was very muted. The Bene Gesserits are an amazing creation. It was a creation that was, if you look at all those other famous, the Asimovs and the Harlan Ellison, they were all such misogynist.
Yeah.
And that Herbert would invent this sisterhood, like this this Jedi sisterhood. I love them. They're such a great creation.
It is,
and
cool.
I think that they were really dull in the 2021.
I do think, what I will say in defense of the Villeneuve Dune, but I do think that there were enough glimpses of things to pique my interest, and I think that was a lot of what they were trying to do. I basically, my suspicion is that they're going to do this Bene Gesserit sisterhood show for HBO Max. Like that's in the works now. But
is that right?
Yeah, so it's in the works.
IP.
That's what
IP.
Exactly.
IP.
That's what I think they're going for. And I think it would be a really smart move to, after they do part 2, which looks like it's now going to happen. I mean, given the success, at least the opening weekend success, is instead of doing like Dune 3, which is the second book, just now do it all as a TV show. And I think that's
I think so.
Probably what they do.
I think so. The books get real weird. But Herbert was, Herbert's books are a critique of everything that should be critiqued right now, from colonialism to imperialism to even, as you point out, superheroes. Paul becomes a superpower sort of messiah, and then shit goes off the rails, right? Herbert creates a character who's the product of eugenics, and he goes off the rails.
Hey everyone, Justin's inner monologue again. I just want to mention that the thing that John is referring to here about Paul's story in Dune being a superhero origin story, that was something I'd put in the document that I forgot to mention. And so John's referring back to something that I actually didn't mention in the episode, but I wanted to make it clear to you guys. So we were thinking about talking a little bit about how this is just another superhero origin story. But one that, as John's pointing out, has a very different arc from the usual Marvel one. So the sleeper must awaken. Okay, back to the show.
Like, he's writing about stuff that we still don't want to talk about, and it's smart stuff, know.
Totally.
Even with the white savior tropes and the fact that the Fremen, there's a part of me that I know that Lynch's Dune is just white.
Yeah.
I think there's one black character, and he's part of the Emperor's entourage at the end.
Right.
Just so white. And there's a part of me that thinks that works because his Fremen at least, his Fremen at least don't completely look like the sort of noble savage trope that. Anyway, I would love to see a Dune TV show. And I had that thought as I was watching this. I was like, the politics are fun.
Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, I think part of what I was saying this in response to what you're saying, John, is that I suspect that this is like a sampler plate. This is an appetizer for what they're going to then go and expand on. And I think what they're thinking is Game of Thrones. Like, that's going to be the model, and they're going to want to expand it and go into the various places. And that's what they're going to do with the Bene Gesserit. So I think, we saw very little Bene Gesserit stuff, but hopefully in the series, the veil comes off. And
look, there's plenty of stuff we didn't see in part 1, right?
Yep.
We didn't meet the Emperor. We didn't meet Fade. We certainly didn't see a naked space maggot fly up into a space cube and shoot light out
I was missing that.
Mouth.
Yeah. So we're good. That's all going to be in part 2. But but I was thinking even there, I thought, okay, I could see them saying, okay, in the show, that's where we're going to zoom in. We're going to zoom into the Bene Gesserit. We're going to zoom into the Spacing Guild. We'll zoom into the guy who balances the books for the Emperor. Do a whole episode on that guy. I'd be excited about that. So,
I just want to add. I know the couple critics that said that the 2021 Dune is boring. I don't think it was boring. I don't think it's boring, and my heart is big enough for both of those movies.
Yeah.
I just thought, I just think it's a problem with that filmmaker. Sicario is a really mean political crime movie that's really good. This is a space opera.
Yeah.
And I just don't know if he's the right director always. I don't know.
Yeah, I will say this. If I had seen this movie at 10 or 11 or 12 when I first saw the 84 Dune, I mean, I think I would have really dug it. I mean, I think my 10-year-old self would have been like, oh, fuck, this is crazy. Like, I just, there's enough in it for me that I think the things that resonated with me were these kind of mystical elements that are present in this film. So the voice and the Jedi powers of the Bene Gesserit was great. And I mean, the sound design, I mean,
unbelievable,
amazing. And that's actually one part of the Lynch film that I have to admit, as a fan, nonetheless, is I think still it's a weak spot of the film. And I've seen it in 35 in a theater, and I've seen it, on a home. I've seen it obviously at home and stuff. But it's a thin sound. I think that's just something to do with mixing what they had and the capability of mixing, in 84 and so on. But
the voice was one of a dozen or so just things that Lynch threw out. The voice in Dune stayed true to Chekhov's space witch voice law.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
If you use the space witch voice in the first act, you got to use it in the. But the voice was a very cool.
It was cool.
Effect.
Yeah.
You dismissed my mother in her own house.
Come here, kneel.
How dare you use the voice on me?
I love Lynch's voice, though. Actually, to be fair, I'm not criticizing the Lynch voice. I think actually I might even like the Lynch voice more. But for me, it was just there's a broader sense of, they had more. I mean, obviously he's got more technology, so he could just do more stuff, and the sound mixing's better. So I have to give credit there.
She's using the voice. No.
Some strength there. Surprising. Come here.
I think all these things are true. I think at the same time, there's a sequence in the Villeneuve Dune that I really liked, which is we don't see any of this in the Lynch Dune, and I think maybe Lynch had some of this shot. It would be actually really cool to know if he did. But the Sardaukar scene when they're in Salusa Secundus, the prison planet where they train these guys up from birth, and there's dudes who are being bled upside down into some pools of blood, and then the blood is put on the heads of the guys as they're about to get. I don't know if they're about to get juiced up, because I think they wear masks and stuff. I think they juice themselves up on drugs to go into battle. And I love the scene because, first of all, there's a dude at the front throat singing, and it's so cool. And the sound design again is amazing.
Right. I called that Sardaukar Peloton.
Yes. Peloton. Yeah, that's right. That's right. But then Piter, this nerdy white pasty guy, is telling this jacked, special forces dude. He's like, "Okay, we need your troops." And the guy's like, "What do you mean? Like, we're the Sardaukar. We'll kill anyone." And Piter's like, "Well, do you know that the Atreides have a guy named Duncan Idaho?" And I remember I was just thinking, yeah, that just shows how absurd this all is. Like, there's a guy named Duncan Idaho who is a better swordsman than these dudes have been trained up from birth. I just love that stuff. And I feel like the movie doesn't recognize, in some sense, how funny that is, because everything is played deadly serious. But I do think it's kind of funny.
Duncan Idaho is a better name for a space rogue than Han Solo.
Agreed.
It's a good name.
I mean, Duncan Idaho is a fucking great name.
Yeah. It's great too because it reminds you that this is our future. Like these people are named after, like the way our names are like biblical names. These people are named after places, and they're like, yeah, Idaho. That was an important place.
Yeah, after Dunkin' Donuts in Idaho.
Right. Yeah, Dunkin' Donuts.
So Idaho becomes incredibly important to human civilization in the next 8,000 years. Improbably. Well,
somehow. It's because we all need the potatoes to fold.
That's
space.
right. Okay, that's
potato gun becomes the most important weapon. I think that scene's great. That might be my favorite scene of the entire movie.
But did you just think the entire time about how much you miss Brad Dourif as Piter?
Okay.
I do.
Okay, now we should. Okay, let's do Brad Dourif corner.
Don't bring us back to. Fucking Brad Dourif. Are you kidding me? You want to talk about what Brad Dourif you want to talk about? You want to talk about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest Brad Dourif? You want to talk about Exorcist 3 Brad Dourif?
Oh my God.
You want to talk about Deadwood Brad Dourif? He's so good.
He's so good. And I don't mean to say anything bad about like the actor who plays Piter in this one. It's a different performance, but I just miss the zaniness of throughout the whole movie, I miss the zaniness of Lynch's Dune, but in particular in Piter.
He knows what kind of movie he's in. That's the brilliance of the performance.
I don't know. It's the kind of movie where he has to say the prayer. It is by the juice of Sapho that thoughts acquire speed, the lips acquire stains, the stains become a warning. It is by will alone I set my mind in motion. Like he gives an entire scene. Lynch gives an entire scene where Brad Dourif gets to say some bizarre human computer prayer while drinking brain juice. That's what that scene is. It's like a minute and a half scene. And it's beautiful.
It's critical. I think about it all the time.
I think for the two of us, Piter is one of our favorite characters in the film, which is wild because in the book he's very marginal and he's not
Brad Dourif's death face when he gets the tooth gas is incredible acting.
It is. It's amazing. Actually, so here's one more part of the Brad Dourif performance that we love. So there's all we're going to do is just talk about favorite parts now of Brad Dourif. But there's the part where he's explaining the plan, right?
As you instructed me, I have enlightened your nephews concerning my plan.
My plan!
The plan to crush the Atreides.
Yeah, right. I remember that. That's another thing. In one of my humongous pieces, I write too that say what you will about the Lynch's ideas of the Harkonnens, they are having a good time.
Oh yeah.
And they are the only ones in the Lynch universe, like Raban, Fade. They hang out. They rip the hearts out of twinks. They suck. They drink insect juice and tear meat off of cows.
And just float around, baby.
They push little people over just for shits and giggles. Like they're having a good fucking time.
Mm-hmm. They are. They got the dermatologist on call and they're ready to go.
I will say that
you have the world's best dermatologist who's like,
just
can you
sucking
imagine?
Goo out.
Can you imagine if your dermatologist was like, you're so beautiful. You're so beautiful, John. Your skin is beautiful. Like, I'd be like, let me pay you extra.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That guy gets his own title card at the end of in the credit sequence. I love that.
Can we talk about how the end credit sequence is like one of my favorite. Like, I love that music at the end of the movie is the music that I want played at my funeral.
Yeah, that I've seen you tweet that, and I think that's a bold. I think that's a really bold.
You know why I tweet that? Because I want that song to play at my funeral.
Yes, now many people have seen this. It will happen for you.
Yeah.
We will make sure.
Thank you, Dora. Thank you.
It is wonderful. It is a wonderful.
I might move up my dying earlier.
Please don't. No.
It is wonderful. I mean, Yeah, that's the part of the movie that if people haven't, when I would show this to people, if people weren't already laughing and I'd be in the background being mad, at that point there would be usually a few chuckles and, it's just fine. I don't begrudge it.
Here's why I love the ending with the title cards and that music that's sung by Toto, is because Lynch's Dune is a very melancholy movie. And that's one thing I love about it. There's that image that the characters, the Atreides look like Franz Ferdinand or Nicholas, Tsar Nicholas. There was something sad about aristocrats dying, even if they deserve to die. And so there's a sadness to Dune that what do you want? I was a sad boy growing up. So there's a melancholy to Lynch's Dune and just a little bit in 2021,
Yeah. You're right. Because at the end of the 2021 Dune, he is, this is something that they are iterating again and again, but he has to leave his Atreides roots. That's the big transition. Is his old self is dying, and his new self, Paul Muad'Dib, which he hasn't been named yet, but Paul Muad'Dib is now rising and becoming one with the Fremen. So
he has to join Burning Man.
That's right. Yes. That reminds me though of, so there's this important theme in the book that the Lynch film is foreshadowing in a way at the end, which is that the rise of Paul Atreides as a Messiah figure, it's not heralded as a happy moment in a way. It's sort of an inevitability, and that's the way I think Paul sees it and feels about it. But he's not particularly excited or happy to lead a jihad that's going to kill billions of people which is going to happen in the next couple books. And the next couple books make this really clear that he's really ambivalent about everything that has happened in his name, basically. And I think that is foreshadowed by the ending music, which is in a minor key and has a certain degree of longing for it. I mean, he's avenged his father's death by the end of that, but to what end? I mean, he's going to basically become a despot. And I think Frank Herbert is deeply ambivalent about that. I think, for the political themes of the books, Frank Herbert is really concerned about the fact that, yes, this was a corrupt system, this bureaucratic system of the Landsraad that was operating prior to the first book. But what it gets replaced with is basically a totalitarian demigod. And Frank Herbert isn't particularly excited about that either. And so,
no.
Yeah.
But again, and when you called Paul a superhero, I thought that was interesting. Because Herbert is bothered by the idea of a savior, of a messiah, and there's a message in Dune that's not that dissimilar from Alan Moore's message in Watchmen, which is that a super heroic savior figure is a fascist.
Yeah.
that Paul Atreides or Paul Muad'Dib it changes the universe through violence.
Yep.
And so if you change, if you use violence to create change, you're doomed, or your followers are doomed, or that system is somehow corrupt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's a message, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean,
which is again going back to how unpopular I think ultimately Herbert's stories are full of cool shit.
Yeah.
But his messages are subversive in a way that I don't know. I'm curious. Like Game of Thrones is a real superficial series. I think it's a very superficial sort of like series. Dune has some real subversive. And it was beloved by the counterculture for that reason.
It's as if we have to think of it like it's as if one. We don't like fascists because they have a lot of power. But now imagine a fascist, but you can't take that power away from him because it's as if he's the only one with a nuke. That's effectively what you have. And he's effectively proposing there's that option, or there's the bureaucratic wrangling of the Landsraad, which was all totally corrupt and it's this loose allegiance, pseudo-democratic allegiance of houses, which was a hellscape too. That was not a great situation to be in as well. So if you're forced between these two choices, that's actually ultimately a deep and difficult philosophical puzzle that remains unsolved in the year 10,191, just as it's unsolved in our time today. And I think that is one of the reasons that for, I think, the enduring interest in Dune, as you put it, we interest that was part of the counterculture, but also it makes it relevant for today's day and age when there's a growing dissatisfaction among both the right and the left with the current political system, which is one largely of these bureaucrats who are working in the background to continue a state which basically moves at the pace of a sandworm. A really slow sandworm, right? Because and that's what you get when you have this kind of representative democracy where you have tons of infighting and polarization. You just get a lot of gridlock and standstill, and there's a lot of disappointment with that. But as Frank Herbert's pointing out, the alternative to give so much power to one person is, yes, a lot of change can happen, and that's what happens in the books. Muad'Dib, institutes the Golden Path or whatever, and they change Arrakis and all that. But it's ultimately has terrible consequences.
Right.
So,
which is an interesting twist.
Yeah.
And it is a much more interesting moral universe than, say, Tolkien.
Yes, right.
Which is a very sentimental, very Christianist sort of good and bad. Dune. It shocks me that it has this much staying power. It really does.
Yeah, I think he's tapping into something deep in our both in our experience, like in the world, but also in our understanding of, in our relationship to the world that we live in. And I think, in particular with there being, one important resource that becomes essential for the functioning of the society and everything that's come to pass. Of course, he's writing in a time when, there's this thing called, he calls it the CHOAM Company, which is OPEC, basically, and the spice is obviously oil. So the analogies are very obvious, but it's clear that this is coming from somebody who, maybe I shouldn't say this is clear, but my read is that this is coming from somebody who is very disdainful and ambivalent about our finding success in the political realm, but who cares most importantly about the environment and about the environmental impact of all of this.
Yeah, but Herbert would have been seeing in the 50s and 60s a lot of those Middle Eastern democracies being overthrown by the West at a time when popular culture could have given a shit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't give a shit about this for so long that we ended up, we've been at war in the Middle East since 1991. Right? We've been, if not before, in more clandestine ways. So he was a real pioneer. And look, he's writing this also at a time when the most dominant science fiction story is a sort of utopian Pax Americana Star Trek bullshit.
Mm-hmm. It's really, I think that explains exactly why it has that staying power. And I think also, as we talked about briefly before, the anti-colonialist stuff has, resonance today, obviously. That the sort of post-colonial situation that we find ourselves in and grappling with the kind of the vestiges and the after effects of colonialism and trying to figure out, well, what do we do as colonizers or as people who have participated in some degree in that system or benefited from that system? What should we do? And just to come back to your point about the scene where Leto I think he's talking to Dr. Kynes, right? Liet Kynes. And
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and where he basically says, all right, we'll try to do our best to, not mess with the Fremen, but we're not going to leave because we got to make money. Like, we're here to make cash money. So, and I think that really does summarize the viewpoint of a lot of people who would call themselves liberal today, perhaps even myself among them. Like, what I want to support certain causes, but I'm not going to give up my livelihood to do so, right? I'm not going to just, throw away everything that I've worked for in order to go and work, basically do Doctors Without Borders or work for Greenpeace or whatever. So there is this kind of, I think, I'm not saying he's criticizing Leto in that regard, but I think it's as you put it nicely, I think it gives voice to a certain perspective in this debate. And
it is tragic that Leto Atreides is dead. And one reason it's tragic is because they went to Arrakis.
Yeah.
And they didn't necessarily have to, but Leo, the Atreides family is complicit in the exploitation of Arrakis.
Yep.
They might be the nicest people in the world. Paul Atreides might be so adorable. Every tough guy in the universe just wants to hug him. But ultimately, they are part of a corrupt system, and we are part of a corrupt system.
Yeah. So, okay. So we talked a little bit about some of the themes. We've talked a bit about our comparisons to the two movies. Is there any other parts of either the Lynch Dune or the Villeneuve Dune that you wanted to draw attention to? Either of you two.
I can give my quick observations about what I did and did not like about the 2021. And I think, John, you mentioned that it looked good. That the new Villeneuve looks, and it looks really slick. I don't love the look of the new Dune. I think, it is beautiful in a sterile way, as you said, but if you have 3 planets to work with, right? Why would you have them all have the same color palette of, gray and black and shadow, right? Caladan is rainy and dark. And Arrakis, when it's outside, it's like a kind of color wash. It's like a sun bleached look, but all the interiors are dark. I do understand why, because they're, they explain that they're closing up all of the windows because it's so hot and outside that they have to keep the cool inside. But it's still all the interior scenes are in shadows and on Arrakis. All of the scenes in Gidi Prime are obviously dark. All the scenes in Caladan are dark. The whole movie is just gray and monotone. And I love how much Lynch, his movie's so vivid. And if you're going to make a world like a la Game of Thrones, that's half the pleasure of Game of Thrones. I wasn't that big of a Game of Thrones fan, but we watched all the seasons because you liked it. And I was kind of just there for the tourism of it in some ways. If you're not going to participate, right? You get every world is snowy and cold, or that it's
sometimes
tropical.
It's cold, sometimes it's hot.
Sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's hot. That's what I'm saying. No, but the colors, the landscapes, they went to so many amazing locations for Game of Thrones, and the movie, the show is sumptuous as a result.
Yeah.
This movie has incredibly huge sets that feel so empty.
Yeah.
If you're a royal person in the future, you're not gonna have a single throw blanket anywhere. You just never gonna be cozy in your entire right? Yeah, I understand they're moving in and out, and so there's boxes and stuff, so that maybe that can explain some of the emptiness. But nobody looks comfortable in the future, and I don't want to go. It looks it's a lot of hard, dark surfaces.
But you could have a spider person.
Clearly you're gonna have a spider person for whatever sex stuff you got going on.
Yeah, right. It's I don't know why you have. Look, I don't know why you have a spider person. My spider person is for takeout.
Okay.
It's a Grubhub spider person.
Right.
But so that's my thought on the look of it. But I did actually like the interpersonal stuff because, and this is partly just a result of the pacing, the fact that we're getting a part 1 and a part 2.
Yeah.
And Lynch's Dune covers the whole shebang. I like the moments that they slow down and spend a little bit more time with the Atreides than you get individual scenes with Leto and Paul, and a lot more scenes with Jessica and Paul. breakfast scenes, sort of more like mundane moments where you get a sense of who they are as a family and what they've been kind of preparing for their whole life to different ends, right? Like Leto is trying to groom him to be a duke and a leader, and she's trying to groom him to be a Kwisatz Haderach, which, you know, might come into conflict with what Leto's hopes for Atreides are. And they're both like, it's like that moment where your kid's going to college, which I haven't gotten there yet. I imagine it's terrifying. But like when Leto says like, I thought we had more time, I think I'm going to look at you when our kid's 18 and be like, I thought we had more time. Did we do it? Did we do it right? Like he's just, here we go. You know?
Yeah.
She was very good.
So good. So good.
And I think that she is Ferguson?
Yeah.
She's an anchor for that movie because she was able to portray the mother and the space witch. You know, that exchange between her and Leto about where he's like, will you protect him? That was interesting, but she was real good, and her fight with the Fremen was pretty cool.
Now I'm asking you this one thing: if anything happens, will you protect our son?
With my life.
I'm not asking his mother. I'm asking the Bene Gesserit. Will you protect Paul?
Why are you having these thoughts? Leto, this is not you.
I thought we'd have more time.
She's great. Well, actually, let me ask you, John. So what did you think Kyle MacLachlan versus Timothée Chalamet?
In my review, I compared him to a Disney princess meets the Ubermensch.
That's about right, sure.
Timothy, I didn't think much of him, and then I watched a Netflix movie called The King that was an attempt to retell the Henry IV's, the Henry and Falstaff story from Shakespeare, and it's a really good movie. And Timothy is really solid in it. So he's a good actor. I liked his boyishness. We'll see how, Kyle MacLachlan is a young man.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a little bit of a dilettante, innocent, but he seemed very protected, but he was a young man. And Timothy is a boy, or he played Paul like a boy.
Totally,
a boy with a lot of weight on him. He's feeling the pressure, and he's so of all these expectations, and he's so ambivalent.
But like I also think, but also like he is so adorable.
He's so
and
adorable.
like Duncan Idaho is like flirt, play. Gurney Halleck is like, I'm tough, but really I love you. You're adorable.
Yeah.
You're just this cute little pobrecito. You're like, he's
locks.
like just the cutest boy, and he's just adorable. Like, I sat there and just be like, oh, you're so cute.
Little chipmunk.
There is one aspect of the movie getting delayed, and then number 2 not being greenlit immediately and not being shot consecutively that could actually help him, because the second part is going to go over the course of 2 years. So he is supposed to age a couple of years, and so he will age a couple of years. He'll have time if he needs to put on weight or grow a beard or however they're going to do it to make him more of this grizzled, veteran of guerrilla warfare that he's going to be in the second film, to make that a little bit more believable. So I actually think I think it will benefit from that.
I'm just laughing because I'm thinking about how Kyle MacLachlan did not look grizzled. He just he had his still suit was dirty, but he had that feathered hair.
Oh yeah. I mean, MacLachlan, yeah.
He's got that beautiful feathered hair.
Yeah. But MacLachlan is the right age at the beginning, in a way.
Yeah.
Kyle MacLachlan. And look, Dune introduced Lynch to his muse.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful friendship that started right there.
Oh, 100%.
It's a beautiful friendship. And, I cannot get enough of talking about Lynch. But yes, back to 2021. Timothy.
Timothy's great.
Look, the cast is, the only sour note in the cast was Dave Bautista, who's just too much, as I call him, he's too much of a meatball teddy bear for me to take him seriously as the Beast.
Yeah.
The Beast Raban. He was the only one that didn't really know what he was doing.
The note that I was gonna say to Laura when we watched it was, I thought, you've got Bautista and you've got on the other side Jason Momoa, and I feel like if you're gonna cast these two guys, even if it's not in the book, these two guys should battle. It would be right. That would have been kick-ass to have Raban be the one who kills Duncan, right? Because at least then set, you've got these two dudes and they never really interact, right? But they're the two buff dudes, right? I just thought that would have been amazing. I would have really enjoyed that.
Well, there's always the world of fan fiction, my friend.
Does it work?
Let me tell you something. A lot of people worry, will I have readers? And I can guarantee you'll have one.
Thank you, John. All right, well, let me ask you this, John. So,
and I'm not counting Laura.
I'm not sure I would, honestly.
Yeah, you can't speak for Laura, because when we started this podcast, we were like, we'll have 2 listeners, and Laura was like, who's the second listener? So,
I know, but it's like, I used to read all your Letterboxd reviews, and now I don't even do
I used to tell my Laura, I'd be like, I wrote a Letterboxd review. Do you want to read it? And she'd be like, nah, really.
It's called boundaries, and that's good.
You can write your Beast / Idaho fanfic, your weird spider sex fanfic, like whatever.
Oh, I will 100%. That might be what propels you, Justin. Where I'm like, man, I'm reading. So there was a Harkonnen sex spider in Dune. And this guy's writing fan fiction, and it's incredible. Frank Herbert spider erotica. I didn't know I had a kink.
Now we got it.
Now we know. I'm so sorry. I had to do it one more time, Justin.
No, it's fine. I leaned into it from the beginning, and now I'm reaping the penalty.
The reward.
Yeah, the reward. Oh, the reward. Yeah, that's one way of seeing it.
Now, look, I want to go back to my review and retroactively write like 8 paragraphs about that spider. Because, ironically, one thing that I think we've been talking about is that the movie could have used more spider energy.
That's exactly. Yes.
And like that is what David Lynch's Dune had in surplus.
Oh yeah,
are these asides, but like that spider thing was weird. I kind of think Baron Harkonnen in the black goo was another attempt at something weird. But like, yes, the movie could have used more of that for sure.
Yeah, our friend Molly, who has been a past guest and a future guest, said like she had a visceral reaction to seeing the Harkonnen scenes when we watched the David Lynch one. She was just like, this makes me feel bad in my body. We need more of that.
Yes, that's why we come to Dune, is to feel weird. We want to feel something that makes us. That's probably what initially attracted us as little kids to this movie. It feels weird. It feels foreign. It feels inappropriate. It feels like something we don't want to watch with our parents in the room.
That's an interesting thing. It feels, Star Trek, Star Wars, pop sci-fi has a familiar, sometimes militaristic, Western sort of thing, and Dune is so alien.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's so alien, and it is weird. It does make me feel weird.
I mean, and you combine it with someone like David Lynch, who's a guy who directs movies that put you into his mind. So you see what like is going on in his mind. You see his weird sexual fantasies. You see his weird obsessions with physicality and decay, and it's all laid so bare that it's deeply uncomfortable. One of the most uncomfortable things is getting to know someone so well that you know they have a spider kink sex fantasy, right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Like what's happening right now.
Damn it. I thought you were going to laugh more, and now that joke just landed completely flat. Anyway, that's that. I'm going to cut that shit right out of the podcast.
No. Did it land flat, or was it perfect?
I heard a splat. I heard a splat on that one. But it is weird, right? Getting to know someone, and that's what I think is Lynch is so personal of a director, and Villeneuve is so opposite of that. He's so, I can't keep using the word sterile, but he's so objective and dispassionate in that way. And so, yes, we needed more spider thing, more Baron Harkonnen and goo. I mean, the Baron design was great. The physicality of the Baron I thought was great because it was so unnatural, and he's not just like overweight. His body is misshapen. It's not about overweight. His body is just weirdly misshapen.
Right. He's not. It's not.
He's like buff.
The fat shaming thing critique. The solution was to make Skarsgård massive.
Yeah.
It's not just that he's fat per se. It's that he is almost not human. Both he and Raban are the most inhuman people that we meet in the movie.
Yeah. Besides the spider
everyone
person.
else. Well, he's a Harkonnen, isn't he?
The spider person, yes.
Right. So the Harkonnens are clearly, and I even think in the book they address that there's something going on there, that they're not.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
That they're not entirely human, but
But what I mean, just so I clarify for the audience, I didn't want to I'm not trying to fat shame. I mean, if you look at I don't know what this is called, when the muscles right here between your neck and your shoulders, there's like that's like a muscle.
Like your deltoids?
Deltoid, is that what that's called?
I don't know.
He has massive deltoids, right? Like he's got this huge muscle that like connects the neck and the shoulder. That's like, but it's unnaturally muscular. He looks like what?
But he also has this cybernetic spine thing. He's got. He's not human.
Yeah.
But he doesn't paint his toenails black.
I know.
Like Baron Harkonnen. And David Lynch. I love it. Oh, I love it.
All right. Well, on that note, let's end on a positive note. John, tell us where we can find you on the web and Twitter and so on.
Well, you can find me mostly on Twitter, where I tweet nonstop. At John DeVore. You can also check out Humongous at medium.com/humongous, spelled incorrectly as Lord Humongous from Road Warrior. And for you, Justin, expect some sex spider tweets.
Yeah, all right. There we go. There we go. Can't wait. And we will link John's writing on Dune, which he's written several articles. We'll link that in the show notes below. We are at Cowspod on Twitter. You can find us on the web at cowspod.wordpress.com. And coming up next time, we will be talking to my old friend Vishal Dave about Sunshine, Danny Boyle, 2000.
Ooh.
What was it? 2005
That's a good one.
Movie? I can't remember now. But anyway, we'll be talking to Vishal about Sunshine. So we'll see you then. Bye.